Hello and welcome to the Dr. Tracy Show, where we celebrate life, love, and relationships. I am so excited to have my next guest here on the show. He is an award-winning author and sports writer. He's an adjunct professor, and he's a motivational speaker traveling all over the country, encouraging young people to succeed in life. And I want to introduce to you Mr. Gerald Hoover. Gerald, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Tracy.
I'm so glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
We have a lot to talk about, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We have a lot to talk about. Gerald, let's hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm from New York. Born and raised in the Bronx and Mount Vernon, so I claim both. I started writing when I was in the third grade. I was 8 years old. I wrote my first book, and it was called I Was a Sad Boy. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wrote that is because my dad and mom was going through a divorce, and I was just, actually, I thought I was just doodling, and I didn't realize that what I was doing was somewhat therapeutic, mm-hmm. because I was just basically just trying to get things out of my system. And one of the things that I used to write about was about my dad not being around, and me seeing other kids with their fathers, and especially at baseball games. I would watch a lot of TV, and I would see someone hit the baseball into the foul grounds, into the stands. And you always see some male figure getting the ball and giving it to their son. Mm-hmm. And I used to, it used to grate at me, but I would write about that. Yeah. And so the book was called I Was a Sad Boy. And as I got older, with my dad being in the condition that he was a Vietnam vet, but I'm not blaming that on that, but he was a drug addict and alcoholic, and alcoholism ran in the family. And so me looking at that growing up, I didn't want to get into that, and because I had heard studies that alcoholism run in the family, and I saw how it took out their family. So I started writing, and what I did first was I wrote a speech, and the speech was I was 17 years old at the time. I wrote a speech about young men and young women going through stuff, and how they should not turn to drugs. So, but because I would write a full draft by hand, and then I would get my older cousin Ronald. He was my editor and sort of sage, so to speak, and he would read, edit, and what was funny was he would make notes, say on the side of the notebook. But if he had like real notes, he'd get another piece of paper, right? And it could be a page or so of notes, and then he would staple or tape it to the actual notebook. And sometimes I would have a draft that started like this, mm-hmm. but after he put his touches to it, it would be like that. And then
a whole other book.
Yeah, a whole other book. And then I would put in my notes. Mm-hmm. Then I would include his, and so that would be another draft.
So your love for writing, Gerald, it seems as if it was born out of a lot of the challenges you had as a young man with your father. But as I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm like, but that challenge kind of out of that was born your gift. And did you know that at the time, or did you kind of start to see that, wow, this is turning into something that is bigger than the challenge that I had?
Well, it's funny, I failed to mention this, because in the 80s, race relations weren't that great especially in New York, between blacks and whites and so forth. So I did start another book when I was in the 9th grade, and the book was centered on a black youth and a white youth that came together as friends. I only got to maybe the 5th chapter. For some reason I got discouraged and I didn't write it. So as I got older, as I started writing, I always realized that I had social conscience, in my spirit that I wanted to write about.
Well, I noticed that in reading your book, My Friend, My Hero. I tell you what, when I read your book, Gerald, I couldn't put it down. And you hear a lot of people say that, but I really could not put it down. And my schedule is like super busy.
I can imagine.
But I tell you what, I took the book to work with me. I took it everywhere with me because I couldn't put it down. Because it draws you into real life. I mean, what the things that are going on in our society, even today, your book speaks to those issues that we're struggling with as a society. And so when we come back, I want you to dive a little bit more into your book, and I want to hear a little bit more. I know our audience wants to as well. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
Do you own your own business? Would you like to broaden your network and expand your reach? Advertise on The Dr. Tracy Show. Dr. Tracy can expose your business to over 250,000 potential customers per week. Contact us at drtracybrown.com to discuss your advertising needs. The Dr. Tracy Show can help you promote your business and build your brand. Contact us today. This segment brought to you by the CHL Prostate Cancer Foundation We Care program, funding food, lodging, and prescription drug assistance for cancer patients in need. For more information or to make your donation today, log on to chlfoundation.org and help cancer patients soar to better health.
Well, welcome back from the break, everyone, and I'm having such a great time talking with our guest, Gerald Hoover, who's an award-winning author. And Gerald, I tell you what, I have been looking forward to this day, having this conversation with you, because when I read your book, it was just amazing. And I'm not just saying that. Gerald's book draws you into the characters, and actually there's a little mystery there, so you kind of leave us hanging. It was hard for me not to go to the end and try to figure out what was happening, because you do such an amazing job of walking us through your character's life, and you take us with you inside of the mind and heart of your characters. So tell us a little bit more about your book, My Friend, My Hero.
When you mentioned about you couldn't put the book down, the best compliments I've gotten are from parents or the children themselves that have told me that they read the book, but they couldn't put it down. But these are kids that don't like reading.
Mm-hmm.
They would tell me, Mr. Hoover, I don't like reading, but I couldn't put your book down. And I had one story that a parent told me that I wish I got her name and a child's name, but I was at an event, and she kind of told me this. In passing, if you would, she said, Mr. Hoover, thank you for your book. And I said, you're welcome. She said, my son couldn't put your book down. And I said, thank you, I appreciate that. And she said, no, you don't understand. My son doesn't like to read. And I said, really? She said, but he couldn't put your book down. She said, some time ago, she told him to go to bed. It was time, it was 10 o'clock at night or so. She said it was time for him to go to bed. He was in 6th grade. And he kept begging, Ma, let me just have one more chapter. Mm-hmm. And her knowing that he don't like reading, she was at a standstill. She was like, well, should I let him do it? So she decides, okay, do one more chapter and get to bed. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And she goes off, I guess in the living room, whatever she was doing, and she goes to the back about an hour or so later to check on her son, make sure he's in the bed and sleeping or what have you. She looks in the back and it's dark, but she sees like a light. Mm-hmm. Light. So she goes in the back room, and this joker had a sheet over the cover of the sheet, yes. And he was with a flashlight reading the book. I was like, wow! But I guess I was at an event, so I couldn't get the name and so forth. But I wish I would have done that. So if you're out there, find me, okay? Yeah. But the book started. It was fiction, but like I said, I always had a social conscience about doing things, and my thinking was, I want this to be a series. I wanted to be some way shrouded in mystery, and so I knew the beginning and the end. So I knew how I wanted to end because I knew that there was a speech that was going to be given up. Without giving too much away, but I knew certain things was going to happen the way it did. So now it's just a matter of putting everything in the middle. And so what I did was I took about 3 weeks. This is after my cousin made me read 5 books. He said, you got to read 5 books before you get this, because I wrote the first draft, and he can tell that I wasn't a reader. So he challenged me, read 5 books or you're not getting this back. So I'm like, okay.
Well, that's a big challenge.
So I went there. It was a son. Because he said, I'm going to ask you a question, so don't try to be slick, and don't read it. And so I read the books, and I was trying to memorize like everything I was reading. I really was reading with intent. And so I went to him 2 weeks later, after 10 days, and I said, Ron, I'm ready to go. He said, so I'm thinking like you're going to ask me a bunch of questions. The Joker didn't ask me one question. He just said, hey, okay, take your manuscript back and I'll rewrite it. I was hot. I was like ready for this test.
For the test. Yeah.
So a few months later, I gave him the next draft. He said, now I want to help you.
Wow.
So he can see the difference in just the first draft to the second draft, and he knew how serious I was. So evident from that point on, even now he helps me, and this is 35 years later. He's always been in my corner. But the book itself is fiction, and so I tried to put basketball, which is something that most everybody plays, and I want to put real life to it, and I want to put some sorrow, and I want to put some comedy. So I thought about movies like Coolie High, Cornbread Earl and Me. These are the old black movies, legendary black movies for young people, and I put a little that element within it. With mystery, and I don't know if you remember. It's funny, we're in Dallas, right? You remember Dallas, the TV show?
Right.
Something happened.
I
don't want to say what happened because I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
But I had that in my mind.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, let me put a little mystery in. Let me put a little this and a little that.
Yeah.
And so by being able to put that in there, I was able to fill up my my ideas. Yeah. And so what I did was, with the 3 weeks, I bought a spiral notebook. I love spiral notebooks. And I wrote down ideas. I numbered my ideas from 1 to 250. And I just, anything that came to my mind, I just wrote it. Just wrote it.
Well, and I think that's, I'm glad you say that, Gerald, because I think a lot of people that have not written books before, they want to write, but I think a lot of them are waiting for kind of that right way of doing it, or, they go and hire somebody to do all of this, big work for them. And I'm not knocking that approach, but I will say, as you talk about your spiral notebooks, I remember writing my first book, and I was out jogging, and like you, it's like the inspiration comes, and I was like, I couldn't wait to get back home, because you have to write things down when they come to you, or else sometimes you lose it. And so, but I came home and took some copy paper, right? Just blank paper, folded it, and that was the first book. That was the start of the first book. So I'm just saying that to say, y'all heard Gerald's story, and you're hearing my story. So if you're wanting to write a book and the inspiration is inside of you, and it's something you have in your heart and soul and spirit to do, go ahead and do it. Don't wait until the magic moment, or, just go ahead and write your list of 250 ideas, and it materializes.
There's no magic moment if you wait for it. Like you were jogging, it happened. Sometimes it was funny. I was just telling my son this yesterday. I said, when he was smaller, sometimes if I'm in the car by myself, if I had music going, I had to have a notebook pad next to me, because it would just rush to me, and it would just come at any moment.
So where do you think that inspiration comes from? I know they're ideas, and I know they come to you, but for you, where does that come from? Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Tracy, and I'm so excited to be able to bring you the Dr. Tracy Show. This is not your everyday talk show. This is a show that's going to be filled with a celebration of life, love, and relationships, as we bring you some incredible guests sharing some incredible stories.
And so when I say reflections of me or reflections of us, I want them to know that they don't have to be like us to be great. They don't have to be like somebody else to be great. They can simply look in the mirror and see the beauty of themselves. Sometimes, even for a romantic relationship, you don't have the time to nurture the relationship as much as it should be required, or as much as needed.
So I want you to tune in as we bring you an incredible, inspiring show. Join us.
Well, what I do, I pray a lot, and what I did was not to get too deep, but this is truth. Before I wrote the book, I went on a fast, and I was 17, 18, so I was a kid, but I went on a fast, and I said, Lord, you get into my mind and get into my hands and write for me. And then I realized that writing is not with your hands; it's really it's with your mind. Oh. And I knew that by it was a and I forgot her name, but she was a white lady. She had no arms, and she was an author, best-selling author. And I saw a picture of her. She was driving with her feet. And I tell kids they start laughing. I'm like, no, that's the truth. She drove, and she had a baby. She was changing the diaper with her feet. I mean, she knew. So I'm like, wait a minute. If she writes books, if she was in her feet, then evidently it ain't just the hands.
Right.
So when I realized that it was the mind and the spirit that wants to come out, now it's a matter of articulating it. And my thing, again, being socially conscious and spirit-minded, I'm like, okay, I want to impact people. And actually, my cousin Ronald, one day he told me this, because sometimes I would play around and get lazy. You know, he can tell when I wanted to get to an end of a chapter or a scene. I would get lazy. I would go from using real good words to like,
just kind of like,
I'm put it in codes.
Okay, I'm ready to wrap up here.
And it would be like, we're getting lazy.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would laugh. And then he would like lose it. This ain't funny. I'm like, whoa. I mean,
yeah.
And his thing was, he said, Gerald, I want people to buy the book. No, he said, I don't want people to buy your book because you wrote it. Because of my young, now every time I'm young, I'm thinking, duh, why not? Yeah, I want them to buy it because I wrote it. But his thing was, I want them to read and write your book. Read and buy your book because it's a good book. Oh. So he put that in me.
Yes.
And then I started to think, okay, yeah, you're right. You want to make this thing, every word you want to be powerful, every sentence you want to be powerful, every paragraph, every page. So when I started thinking like that, I started thinking with intensity. So my thinking is, I want you to turn the page, turn the page, turn the page. That's why when you're saying what you're saying, it's just confirmation of how my thought process was. Make every single page count to where you want to turn the page to the next page, and then like I said, every chapter, and then when you get to the end, however it ends, you want more. Yeah. And so
that takes us to the next book.
It takes us to the next book. But the key was, there are messages that are subliminal, and some that are just outright message, it's hitting right in the face. But I wanted to do that in a way where there was an ebb and flow. Yeah. And I learned that by listening to R&B. What I mean by this, we just had back in the day we had cassette tapes.
Right.
So I remember putting in cassette tapes because I would have mood music. To kind of help me do things, whether it be soft R&B or gospel. And I noticed that every song wasn't slow. Every song wasn't fast. Every song wasn't jumpy and shouty. So it was it was different types of songs, but it kept me riveted to the cassette. I mean, to the track. I said, okay, let me write like that.
Well, and I'm glad you say that, Gerald, because then it sounds like when you're writing, you're approaching your writing with intentionality, and it's not just, okay, well, let me write this book and then let me write the next book in the same way I wrote the last book and so forth. So if you talk about ebb and flow, that means there's some change. There's a change in tempo, a change in mindset, a change in, you may have some humor here or very tragic things going on over there. So that's the part that kept me just engaged. I loved your book, and I'm telling you what, I do, without giving too much away, because we want to buy Gerald's book so that we can support him. Yes, but I do want to talk about the characters, and I want to talk about the heart of your books, because that's what really grabbed me. Was I knew as I was reading that there was heart there. I could identify with many of the characters, the mother in the book and so forth. I don't want to give too much away, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about My Friend, My Hero by Gerald Hoover. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
This segment brought to you by the CHL Prostate Cancer Foundation We Care program, funding food, lodging, and prescription drug assistance for cancer patients in need. For more information or to make your donation today, log on to chlfoundation.org and help cancer patients soar to better health. Do you own your own business? Would you like to broaden your network and expand your reach? Advertise on The Dr. Tracy Show. Dr. Tracy can expose your business to over 250,000 potential customers per week. Contact us at drtracybrown.com to discuss your advertising needs. The Dr. Tracy Show can help you promote your business and build your brand. Contact us today.
Well, welcome back from the break, everyone. And Gerald, before we left from the break, we were talking about all of your different approaches to writing and how you kind of take us up, but then we come back down again. And I love it. I love it because what you're allowing yourself to do is be creative with your writing, and you're not putting yourself in a box that, oh, okay, I'm this kind of writer. You are, you kind of know how you want things to pan out at the end of the day, and then you kind of work back from there. And so tell us a little bit more. I know that you have written My Friend, My Hero, and if we can zoom in here, that would be great. Gerald has done a magnificent job of just telling such an amazing story. This book is on point. This is on point. And the reason why I say that, you all, is when you read this book, you're going to find yourself somewhere in this book. Or you may know someone that has struggled, not to give too much, but struggled with drug use and peer pressure and just feeling alone and isolated and having to make critical decisions for their lives that changes the trajectory of your life. So tell us a little bit more, Gerald. I'm trying to be.
You said it better. You said it better. I can say it. But to your point, now you said the top here says 25-year anniversary edition. Mm-hmm. It's really when maybe years 27.
Okay.
But remember I told you earlier, I wrote by hand.
Yes.
Now the first 60 drafts were written by hand. No, I'm sorry. I did 60 drafts before it got published.
So you got 60 drafts of this book?
Yeah. And the first written, first 9 or 10 were written by hand. Mm-hmm. And then I got rejected 40 plus times. Mm-hmm. Right. So every time I got rejected, I rewrite it and so forth and so on. Wow. And it was 9 years when it got published. I started in 1983. It got published in 1992. Wow. That's why I put 25th year anniversary. What the amazing thing was, it first came out in 92. But started in 83, got rejected all those many years, and now I'm celebrating close to 30 years with an imprint, and this is the 6th edition. This is good for family literacy, as I have essay questions in the back of the book. Mm-hmm. But what I try to do with these young men and women was, as you mentioned just now, I tried to get someone that will be able to read. Let me rephrase that. People who read the book can see themselves in it. Mm-hmm. Right? As you said, they can see someone else in it. Mm-hmm. And without profanity, there's no profanity in there. There's no racial tones in there. Mm-hmm. It's not flat because there is violence in it and so forth. And there's comedy. But it's done in such a way where it can be sold in churches, which I've done quite a few book signs in churches, and it can be in schools. Yes.
One of the things that I really like, as a counselor in the schools, working with counselors, I should say, the big push now is on social emotional learning, and the idea behind that is kids cannot learn if they are socially and emotionally hindered. And so what I like about this is that your characters are going through real life everyday stuff. I mean, really. And so what I think it does, Gerald, is it helps you to realize you're not by yourself. Really. I mean, these are everyday problems that our kids are having in the schools, and then we wonder why they can't learn. Well, shoot, they may not have food to eat, or mom is worried about the kids being out on the streets and, in gangs or being influenced by, people that are not very good influencers. So that's the part that I really like, and if you are working in the schools, if you're a school counselor, if you're working with social and emotional health in the schools, I really want you to consider going to Gerald's website and getting this book. And not only that, Gerald, but you also have a workbook that goes with it. Tell us about that.
Sure, I have a full curriculum. Well, within the book, because I was getting rejected so many times, I was thinking, like, how is this book going to get where it needs to go? And I thought about it. I said, well, this book doesn't have profanity. As I said, it doesn't have anything racial. It doesn't have anything that couldn't be read in certain places. So I said, well, where are young people congregated? Well, they're in churches, they're in schools, they're in community-based organizations. So my thinking was, put essay questions at the end of the book, right? And allow that to be something that they can use for book reports. Now, I didn't know anything about social emotional learning back then. Now, let me tell you a very quick story, very quick. One draft I was writing, it was in June. It was in July. It was in deep summer. I lived on the 10th floor in the projects, and we didn't have AC back then, so all the windows were open. And I'm in handwriting mode, and I can hear my friends outside playing. And I looked outside into clear blue sky, and I said to myself, why am I doing this? And just like you hear my voice, I tell the story all the time, a voice came back to me and said, this is not just about you. Keep writing. Now, I didn't know anything about social emotional learning. I didn't know anything about what's going on, cultural relevant literacy, or cultural responsive literacy, all the buzzwords that's going on now. I had no idea about that. I just turned around, kept writing. And now, again, to put the essay questions in the back of the book, also a list of topics for discussion, I thought parents would be able to engage with their children, because a lot of times parents don't have a connection with children and they don't know how to speak to them. So I said, well, if they read the book, the parents could talk to them about what's going on, about why you should say no to this, that, and the third, and then seeing the characters, and that could be a conversational piece.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, okay, I can make this into a curriculum where I can make this something that kids can use on another level.
Yes.
And so I came up with a concept, and I ended up hiring somebody to do it, because I tried to do it myself. I wasn't that good. But I hired a person who was a curriculum specialist, and my name is Katrina Williams. I'm going to give her a plug.
All right, Katrina. Great job.
She is awesome, and we came up with a concept where we have a student success workbook, we have a teacher's edition, and unit assessment. Also, we have a assessment test. So you'll have 4 components for My Friend, My Hero, and then the other books. So each book will have a pre-test, what called pre-assessment, student success workbook, so they can students can work and write in. The teacher will have the answers, so he or she will have that to govern, and then also the unit assessment, so they can see how far they've come with certain things. So,
I love that. I work with school counselors, and one of the things that I try to train counselors to do, and actually is supported by the American School Counselor Association, is to measure students' perception data, or their perceptions, I should say. What do your students know before you approach them? What is their knowledge base about various things that are going on? For example, how do they feel about their ability to achieve? How do they feel about their ability to make friends, or their ability to make decisions? So before we dive in and start giving kids things or information, I think it's important that we measure what do they know and what do they not know, so that we know how to fill in the gaps for them.
What I try to do with that, because I have a focus and intention, focus and intention is enlighten, educate, empower. So I that's in my mind right from the jump, because those 3 elements give you confidence.
Enlighten, educate,
empower.
And empower.
There's 3 E's.
Okay.
Enlighten, educate, and empower. If a counselor or teacher has that as a focus for every student that they're working with, then what you're going to end up giving the child is confidence, because self-esteem, low self-esteem is people don't talk about this like that in that way, because it may sound spooky, but it's really demonic. Because if you don't have self-esteem, it'll lead you to do things that you think about and say, well, I shouldn't have did that.
Right. And it's all about what you believe about yourself, self-efficacy, feeling good about what you have to bring to the table, feeling good about what you're able to do. And Gerald, I tell you what, that's so important. That's so important. When we come back, I want to put your information up on the screen because I want to make sure that those of you who are out there that work with children, whether it be in the schools, in the churches, various organizations, maybe it's a YMCA, or I want you to get this information, figure out where you can get Gerald's information, because this is critical. If we don't guide our students, somebody else will, and we may not like the direction that they take our children in. So Gerald, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back, and thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be right back.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Tracy, and I'm so excited to be able to bring you the Dr. Tracy Show. This is not your everyday talk show. This is a show that's going to be filled with a celebration of life, love, and relationships, as we bring you some incredible guests sharing some incredible stories.
And so when I say reflections of me or reflections of us, I want them to know that they don't have to be like us to be great. They don't have to be like somebody else to be great. They can simply look in the mirror and see the beauty of themselves. Sometimes, even for a romantic relationship, you don't have the time to nurture the relationship as much as it should be required or as much as needed.
So I want you to tune in as we bring you an incredible, inspiring show. Join us.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. And Gerald, I have just enjoyed our conversation about the amazing work you have done with your book series. And I want to hold these up because I want you all to see these. Well, let's start with this one. Okay, so this is the first one, Gerald, My Friend, My Hero.
That's it's called the Hero Book Series.
The Hero Book Series. Yeah. Okay.
Hero Book Series. And
right.
each book has the word hero in it.
Okay.
And
is this number two?
That's number 2.
Okay, he was my hero too. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. And I love your illustrations as well. It just takes me back to like my junior high and high school days, and that was a long time ago, Gerald. But
yeah, same with me. But I have a great illustrator by the name of Jennifer Givner.
Okay.
So I want to give her a plug.
Oh. The third is A Hopeful Hero, and then you have a fourth one coming out, Gerald, which is Hoop Hero. We have a teacher's edition, we have unit assessments, and we have a student success workbook that is all available for you to purchase these items. And if you're a teacher, if you're a counselor, or you work with youth, go ahead and buy Gerald's books, buy his series, get all of the available materials that he has, because this is gonna help. We cannot continue to say our youth are struggling, but we don't give them the tools that they need to guide them through that struggle. Gerald,
I have a website. It's called The Hero Book Series. Mm-hmm. And put the word TheHeroBookSeries.com. TheHeroBookSeries.com. Right, Gerald? All right, you all. So you see that information on your screen. Go ahead. I want to challenge you to get Gerald's information. Go ahead and write it down. Go to his website right now. Right after we finish this show, order the books. And I think you're going to be truly, truly blessed by it. Gerald, you and I are going to be together at the Lone Star State School Counselor Association Conference, and he's going to be presenting to our counselors in the area. If you're there, we want you to sign up for our session. Gerald's going to knock it out of the ballpark when it comes to presenting his information. So we want to say, Gerald, thank you so much for coming to the show. This has been great. I'm motivated and excited now. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
You are most welcome, and we want to invite you back. Anytime you want to come back, anytime you're in Dallas, just come back, and we'd love to have you back. So we want to say thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you for watching the Dr. Tracy Show, where we celebrate life, love, and relationships. Take care. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.